Hello and welcome back to Order Within. I'm your host, Brandon Ward, looking to dive in deeper into this biblical journey that we're on. And the approach that I'm going to take with my content moving forward is that of a beginner's mindset. A lot of the expert-focused content in our world has broken our connection to reality in a lot of ways. It's almost like if you don't have some fancy degree, you can't have a perspective or opinion on life. And I think that is really a silly way to view the world. There's tons of wisdom and intelligence in people who don't have degrees. And so for me, approaching my content and the channel with a beginner's mindset is important because I'm new to this, right? I've had an inclination towards God for a lot of my life, but I never grew up going to church. I never grew up reading the Bible. My parents had a belief in God, but they weren't practicing any kind of religion necessarily. They brought up God occasionally, but we never prayed. God wasn't at the center of our life. And what I've learned as I've gotten older is that's really what I've been yearning for is living a God-centered life. I didn't even really know that was a thing in an honest and noble way until I started reading the Bible. And so this episode's going to be about the first 100 days of reading the Bible. My goal is to read the Bible from start to finish in a year. I've got an app that I'm using to track my progress. I just finished the second book of Samuel and started Kings. I finished 10 full books so far. I'm about 30% of the way through the book, through the Bible, and it's just been incredible. It wasn't what I expected either. There's been a lot of lessons, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. There's quite a few things that I want to share based on this first 100 days and what I've learned and what is interesting about it. And my goal is to help others reach this point as well, to find your own connection with our Creator, to find your own relationship with our Creator through the Bible, through church going, through prayer, through journaling and meditating. There's all these different things that we can do. And up until this point of reading the Bible, I was mostly focused on a lot of the spiritual stuff, more of the new age things, but that doesn't negate the power of them. Prayer and meditation and journaling have been around for a really long time. They've been very powerful and helpful for me, but without a centered connection to our Creator, a lot of those things can be empty. And I think that's for me, even getting back into starting a new morning routine. This is the morning. That's why I've got a different setup here, so I can commit to recording more frequently and publishing content more frequently while I balance, my day job as a video editor, working with clients and whatnot. So this journey has been a lot of fun. I'm learning a lot, but I'm new, this is all new for me. So I'm trying to figure it out. And I think there are a lot of people out there who are in a similar position. And so having the ability to kind of navigate some of these things and navigate the nuance and go on this journey as a beginner, as a newbie, hopefully will be helpful to other people because that's where it is. The funny thing is I got ordained as a minister so I could officiate some of my friends' weddings. So I guess technically I'm an ordained minister from the Universal Life Church. But I'm no one special. I don't have any kind of specialized knowledge. I haven't spent a life studying the Bible. I haven't gone to divinity school. I'm not a pastor, none of those things. So I'm just a person trying to center my life around God, live a meaningful life, and hopefully share that journey with you so that it can be helpful for you on your own journey and find comfort and peace in a connection with our Creator. But first I want to look at the overall vibes of the book of the Bible. the biggest thing that stood out for me is it's still very relevant. A lot of people love to talk about the Bible as it's this book of rules, it's this old book, or it's just a book of stories. And there's some truth to all of that. It is a book of stories. There are rules and laws in it, but it's not purely one or the other, at least from my perspective. Again, I'm sharing my perspective on things. I'm not claiming to be an expert. You can disagree with me. You can tell me I'm wrong, whatever. If you do, what would be helpful is if you at least explain your positions. That's always helpful in these types of things, but it's still very relevant. The Bible is still very relevant because the characters, they're striving to live a godly life, the interactions with God, and the issues that they face. The modern world we still have not overcome the challenges that humans have faced for thousands of years at this point. And so when you read these stories in the Bible of people struggling with corruption, dishonesty, crimes, there's a lot of terrible things that happen that people have to deal with in the Bible. And that makes it relevant today because the world is still dealing with a lot of terrible things. There's a lot of nuance and a lot of darkness in the world. And that's the biggest thing for me that's really stood out is wrestling with our darkness, wrestling with the evil in the world and in ourselves that we have to battle, because that's what this is. It's a spiritual battle. And unless we recognize that, it's easy to get swept away in all of it. I think people like to dismiss stuff that's older, that's from a different time, as if it's not relevant or accurate or anything. But I've just found that to not be true. The nature of the Bible deals with our spiritual reality, our spiritual nature, and our yearning for meaning and to connect with our Creator. To me, there's nothing more central to being human. And only in modern times have we dismissed the notion of spirituality in a lot of ways and focused on living a secular life. And I think because of that, we're struggling. I think it's no wonder that we're having a hard time in the world because look around, right? Look around at what we're doing. Look around at how things are. It's a lot of people are struggling. So there's a lot of misconceptions just around what the book is and how it's relevant today. And I think the best way to counteract that is to get in and engage with the Bible. People love to dismiss the Bible who have never read it, who have never looked into it, who know at a high level stories, but they dismiss them as childish and naive. And I think that's a huge mistake. People have this intellectual superiority around it's almost intellectual self-destruction if you believe in a God, if you believe in religion, if you study the Bible, which I found to be complete and utter nonsense. The characters in the Bible, some of the characters in the book are incredible. They're incredibly wise, incredibly intelligent, incredibly successful for their times. So it's a silly notion that believing in God and studying the Bible means that you're an intellectual infant. I think that that's deeply false. And I'll talk about those things on another episode. But for now, there's a lot of misconceptions that I think can be diffused when you engage with the book itself. Another thing is that it changes you. It absolutely changes you. The it's been working on me, and I think this is why people are afraid of it. This is why I think I pushed it off for so long, is it does change you. It absolutely changes you internally. My perspective on the world has changed. The way I feel about the world is different. The way I feel about myself is different. I feel more self-acceptance and love now than I ever have because I realize that yearning for a life with God, centered around God, is not weird. It's not strange. It's not stupid. It's not naive. It's actually very beautiful. And for the majority of human history, people were striving to have relationships with God, to know our Creator, to do right by our Creator, to abide by our Creator. It was only in modern times that that notion has just been completely dismissed. So it changes you in a very powerful way. And that's what it did for me. Is it definitely changed me in the sense, and is changing me just in how strong I feel in my faith, how convicted I feel about these perspectives, and how empowering it is to realize I'm not alone in this journey. I'm not alone in this venture of seeking God, because there are many people before me in this book, not this book, this is my remarkable, in the book, that have led the way, have shared their testimony. And I think that's another thing about the book too, is that it's a book of stories. Yes, it is a book of stories, but these people are real. I believe that they are real. And when you look, we have archaeological evidence that shows these people, they're people in the Bible, are real. So we're looking at human testimony. I don't know why that gets dismissed. Testimony in the court of law, valid witness testimony, holds up in a court of law. So why does it not hold up here in the secular world? It's only what can be proven through the scientific process. And so witness testimony doesn't count for that, I guess. I just think that that's nonsense. So I love being a part now of this rich tradition of people who have been seeking God and finding their way in the world and documenting those stories. It makes you a part of this incredible timeline of people and individuals who have gone through this journey, who have strived to know God and who have had the courage to do so. That's an incredible thing. And knowing that and being a part of that legacy changes you. A couple other things I want to talk about. Some of the books. So Adam and Eve, that story really stood out to me. That's Genesis. That's Genesis books 2 and 3. The story of Adam and Eve is very powerful because we still haven't learned those lessons that they did not learn in their time. And we're suffering because of it. That's the thing that I find most interesting about the Bible is we have a lot to learn. And yes, we've advanced technologically. We have all these modern things, but we have a long way to go in terms of our spiritual awareness, our relationship to our creator, how we engage with the world. Like we're, we have a long way to go. The next revolution in my mind, the next evolution of us is a spiritual one, is centering in God. That's where I think we're headed. To me, this is going to be a golden age of discovery and creation, but it's going to be centered around a connection and relationship to God. That's the key. And that's the thing that's going to change. But we haven't learned these lessons. And that's what we have to learn. And so I think Adam and Eve is a prime example of that. Their story, the story of creation, they represent humanity, right? Adam and Eve as the first humans to exist in a physical sense. And so now people have different interpretations of this, right? That's what makes this book so powerful too, is you can read these stories and they can speak to you differently. And so for me, when I think of Adam and Eve, the first humans on earth, and they're living in this perfect state, and God gives them a few rules. One of those things is, hey, don't eat from the tree of knowledge. He tells them it will kill them. It doesn't kill them, but in a sense, it does. It kills their innocence. It destroys the innocence. It destroys their spiritual purity. So it anchors them into the world. That's the essence. To me, that's the essence of the fall. They fall into the material world because they have now taken from the tree of knowledge. And the tree of knowledge is the knowledge of good and evil. In their pure state, they weren't aware of darkness. They weren't aware of evil. They weren't aware of these things. And so now they are. And now they have to manage that. Now they have to deal with that as people, as humans. God was trying to protect them from that, and they failed to listen. And we're still suffering those consequences. We're still suffering the consequences of the knowledge of good and evil. We haven't reconciled the responsibility of what that means. It's broken us in a lot of ways because it corrupted us, and now we're engaging in battling with it. And we still are to this very day. We are still engaging with our internal evils and darkness, and also engaging with the world, the darkness and evils of the world. Those lessons are still there. Another component of that is the responsibility as men and women. We We women, Eve in this story, was seduced by the world, by the serpent, right? By the call of the world. Eat from the tree of knowledge and you can become like God yourself. That's the same story today. Now, it's not just women that are seduced by that. Adam was with her in the garden. He saw this go down. He was right there with her. He did not stop it. He also ate from the apple. So he too was seduced. It just centers around Eve at the core of that, because I think a lot of things, this is where men struggle with. I think we've all struggled with this, is our women are often our spiritual kind of center point. And sometimes they can help anchor us into the world. That's why being married and having partnership can be so powerful. But they can sometimes lead us to these points. And it's our duty as men to say, no, hey, I don't think that's right. Or something's off about this. He didn't. Adam in this scenario didn't. And he instead blamed Eve. He even blamed God for the scenario because God created Eve. So it's a sense of men have to take responsibility for the leadership roles, the fact that we have to make decisions, that we're accountable for our lives. And if we follow somebody else and we take their lead and they get us into a situation, they're not to blame. We allowed them to lead us. We negated that responsibility. So ultimately, we have to be accountable for what we do and the actions that we take. And getting seduced by the world is something that we all struggle with. It's not just a female struggle. That is what the serpent represents. You see that now. Look at Hollywood. Look at money. Look at all these secret societies. I don't really care if people think this is conspiracy theory, because it's not, dude. You just need to look beyond the surface of the world and realize there's a lot of dark stuff that happens in our reality. People need to wake up to that. Ultimately, they need to get ready, because they're not mentally ready. And a lot of people are going to struggle until they start to recognize the darkness that's in the world, and getting seduced by the world is a big component of that. So we have to work through that. We're still working through that. So Adam and Eve is still very relevant today. Noah was another character that really stood out to me in Genesis, books 6 through 9. Genesis is really great. It's the first book in the Bible. A lot of powerful stories in there, story of creation, the flood, and that's what Noah represents. And I think what was cool about Noah, and this is one of the things that I love about the book, is the stories, the characters. Noah was a God-centered person. He was, according to the Bible, one of the only God-centered people on the planet. Really the only God-centered person on the planet. And the rest of humanity was depraved. This is what happens, right? The fall and the continuation of the fall is that we allow our base nature to get the best of us, our animal nature. That's what becomes darkness. When we combine our creative power with our animal base, we become dark. We can become very encompassed with darkness. And that's happening. That's still happening. And that was happening at the time of Noah. The earth was filled with depraved humans living very animal-centered life. And a lot of that is very sexual deviant, very angry and aggressive. There's a lot of pain, suffering, a lot of a lot of a lot of a lot of terrible things. So God was not pleased. He was saddened and angered to see how depraved humans were. And this created the flood. This ultimately is what led up to the flood. God looked at the earth, said that I'm going to start over. He spoke with Noah, told him he needs to create. He didn't tell him why until after, but he was speaking with Noah, told him how to create an ark, get the animals together, build the ark. He floods the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, to the point to where they're floating above mountains. Like the earth is all water. And eventually, to find out, the rains subside, and Noah sends out, I believe it's a dove or some kind of a bird, a pigeon maybe, and to see if there is any land anywhere. So he sends one out, doesn't come back with anything. He sends one out, doesn't come back with anything. Eventually, the bird comes back with an olive branch. And that's when he knows that now the floods are subsiding, the water is subsiding, and that earth is now coming back. So God is like, dude, I've had enough of this. I'm done. I'm wiping everybody out. Noah is the only God-centered person on the planet. So he takes his family, all the animals, and they wait it out, and then they start anew. And then what ends up happening, and this is what I think is so beautiful about the story, is that God realizes that was really harsh. Wiping everybody out was intense and crazy, and so he makes a covenant with Noah that says, I will never do that again. I will never, if you follow through and you keep me centered at your life, you live an honest life. He lays out some guidelines for Noah to live by. If you can live a God-centered life, and I'm going to make a covenant with you right now that I'll never wipe out all of humanity again. I'll never do that on a planetary level again. So I thought it was beautiful that God's like, I can't do that. I have to accept humans in their depraved state, and that they're going to have to learn and figure this out. Like, that's a huge thing. It's just like with kids. I think I have a daughter. And so for me, this is the same approach we have to take with our kids. You know that they have to figure it out. We can't do everything for them. We can't fix it all. We realize that they have to learn. And that's what has happened here is God realizes that humans have to learn. We have to learn these lessons. So he makes a covenant. He creates the rainbow as a sign and a reminder to himself and to humanity that the covenant he created with Noah will live forward, and that he will honor that covenant, and he will not wipe out the entirety of the human race again. It's a beautiful story. Moses was another person that I really enjoyed. He struggled with his role. Moses was very human, very passionate, very fiery, had a temper, got angry at his people a lot. But Moses was asked to do all of these crazy things. He has these interactions with God. He's raised by the Egyptians. He leaves the Egyptians. He goes on to try and live a normal life. And then God thrusts him into his purpose. And I think that's so much of what we all deal with. Hopefully, if we are living a good life, we have good hearts, purpose is thrust upon us. And sometimes it's not always what we think we want or what we want. At the end of the day, it's ultimately what brings the best moments for our life. But that thrust into purpose, being hesitant about our skills, our abilities, struggling with what we're being asked to do. These are all components that Moses had to face. And I think all of us can relate to that, especially if you're trying to do something meaningful in the world. It can be incredibly hard. People are stubborn. They can be frustrating. They can be silly. They can be trivial. They can be dishonest. Like, there's so many things that humans can be, and we can struggle in the world trying to do good, trying to do the right thing, trying to serve our Creator. And Moses experienced all of that in his life, in his long life. And he's an inspiring character. He goes through a lot of things. They leave Egypt, Exodus, all the things that happens there. Then they wander through the forest. He leads them through the forest. They're doing this for a long time, getting led to the promised land. And eventually they find the promised land, but God's like, look, man, you're not going to be able to come in because during this time, you didn't follow through with some of the things that I asked you to do. You doubted what I was telling you, and it caused problems. So you're gonna see the promised land, but I'm not gonna allow you to enter. Your family will, and your descendants will, but I'm not gonna allow you to do that. And so it's another reminder of like, man, we can do a lot of good. We can do wonderful things. Moses did wonderful things, but we're imperfect. We still make mistakes. And even though we're doing these wonderful things, we still have lessons to learn. And we're not going to get it right. We're not going to get it perfect. There's only one that's done that. That's Christ. And so we all have lessons to learn. We all have flaws that we have to navigate and deal with. But if at the core of our life, we're trying to serve our Creator and we're putting God at the center, things will be okay. We just have to remember that. It takes practice. and it takes effort to stay consistent and connected to our Creator. Even some of the most powerful characters in the Bible struggle with these things. So that's encouraging, though. There are a lot of inspiring characters too, and people that I've enjoyed. And I think if you're interested in it, you should definitely check it out because it it's not something to be afraid of. I think that's what I realized too, is reading the Bible isn't something to be afraid of. I think different characters may resonate with you for different reasons. Some of the characters that I listed that I found to be inspiring outside of the people that I've talked about already so far have been Abraham. Abraham had a deep love for God and was very committed to serving God and had this long story arc, and these things come around full circle that really is beautiful. You wouldn't have imagined it that way. It's just cool seeing the development of characters, but I love the characters that are loyal and dedicated to serving God throughout their lives, despite of what that may mean for them. That's an inspiring perspective to take, and I really found that helpful. Joseph was another one. He embraced circumstances with God's grace. Like, he went through a lot of things. Like, that's the thing. The characters in the Bible go through some stuff, man. They go through some heavy stuff. Betrayal, a lot of things, a lot of death, a lot of destruction. Like, it's a lot. Seeing that and seeing how they navigate those circumstances is inspiring. There's just a lot of, again, like, going through each character would be a lot, but there, I encourage you to check it out and read it if you feel inspired to do it, because there's a lot of characters in here that are very empowered and inspiring humans that we can learn from and glean wisdom from. People are imperfect servants in the Bible. They are all imperfect. They are all flawed humans. None of them are these beacons of perfection. So knowing that is core and crucial to being Christians and God-centered people. We're not perfect. We're flawed. We're deeply flawed. We have lots of weaknesses and challenges that we have to face and struggle with as humans. God still works with us. That's the thing that stood out, is if you have a heart that is centered on God, God can use us. We can become instruments to our Creator. But we need that yearning. We need that love, that heart-centered passion to serve God for that to be true. But we are flawed, and the people in the Bible are deeply flawed, and that is encouraging. We don't need to be perfect, but we need to strive to live godly lives. We need to strive to put God at the center of our life and do the best that we can, because ultimately that's how we overcome our flaws, is we humble ourselves before our Creator and we ask Him to guide us and lead us in our life. That is a very powerful notion, surrendering and being humble, something that the modern world knows very little about. Knowing this, knowing that we're flawed, God works with us regardless. As long as that heart is there, even when our hearts are not there, God is using us in ways that we can't imagine. But the ideal path is we choose to serve our Creator and we open our heart to Him, and He uses us. He allows us. He shows us ways that we can be of service. Because that's one thing that stood out to me, is that the Bible and the characters in the Bible are service oriented. They desire to be of service. They want to help others. They want to be good to others in most ways, right? Feeding them, cleaning them up, helping them. Like, that's something that's very prevalent in the Bible as well. So we can be flawed and be service oriented. The key is putting our heart and centering it on God and allowing Him to guide our hand, allowing Him to guide our lives. We don't need to be perfect. And we're going to make mistakes on this path. We're absolutely going to make mistakes on this path. It's inevitable. Mistakes will come. We have to know that. We have to pray for forgiveness. We have to pray for guidance and direction. We have to be humble about it, but they will come. and we continue to press on. Keeping God at the center of our life is the key. The last piece that I really want to talk about is just that there are real issues. There are heavy and tragic issues in the Bible that are heart-wrenching. Some of the things that people go through are absolutely heart-wrenching and gut-wrenching, man. People losing their family members, people losing everything they had, betrayal. There's all kinds of things that happen. And so it arms us to deal with the world that we face today. Tragedy and challenge has always been a part of the human experience. So it connects us to that. It makes us realize we're not alone. Things are not nihilistic. We can suffer with dignity. We can press forward, and we can become victorious despite how hard consequences may be. So that's a powerful thing to know and remember. And it helps us knowing that God is always with us. In tough situations, in brutal situations, go to God. In good situations, go to God. But in the hardships that we face, God is our anchor. God is our rock. God is our foundation for moving through and facing the world with dignity and courage. Because these things teach us to face hardship. They teach us to face the world that we're in. And the world that we're in has a lot of problems. There's a lot of darkness, a lot of evil in the world, a lot of struggles. So knowing that and learning how to face hardship can empower us to face the world head on with God as our anchor. I hope you found this episode helpful. I'm going to continue to approach the biblical Christian perspective with a beginner's mind. I'm new to all this, and reading the Bible, going to church regularly, that's something I never did growing up. So my wife and I, we've been going to church somewhat regularly. We haven't been going every week, but we've gone frequently. We're getting better at it. It's been very enjoyable. Finding a right church matters a lot. We really enjoy the church that we're going to. Reading the Bible regularly, talking about these things has been incredibly helpful. And so for me, the first 100 days of reading the Bible has been phenomenal. Way different than what I expected. I understand now why, honestly, it's been degraded and talked down on. The Bible is the most dissected, criticized book probably in human history. So why would you not want to lean into that, at least out of curiosity? Because it's not something to be afraid of. It's not something that's going to possess you or do some crazy thing. It's going to help you see the world. And if you have an open mind and an open heart, it can really anchor in a spiritual power that I never felt before. I feel so much connection to God because of these characters and these stories and the guidelines. The guidelines are powerful, right? But the stories are rich. It's such a powerful book. And so it helps us navigate this world. And it's empowering. It's enriching. It's encouraging to know that I'm not the only person that's felt this way. I'm not the only person that's yearned for God, that's yearned for a life centered around God and to be of service. I'm not the only one. In fact, there are incredible humans that have carried on this legacy, this torch of consciousness, of spirituality, so that I now have a connection to that. Because of the work that they've done, I'm sharing in the same things that they've created and passed on. That is an incredible legacy to be a part of. So it's so encouraging to know that, and it's exciting to know that. So I would encourage you to approach these things with a beginner's mind, to approach the Bible with an open mind, understanding that it can help us in ways that we don't yet know. And if you're feeling a yearning towards God, lean into it, pray to Him, ask Him for guidance. It's incredible the things that can happen in this world when we ask our Creator for guidance and with help. He can do all things. All things are possible through God. All things are possible through Christ. And because of that, we will overcome the challenges of the world and we will experience something different. This is a different time we're in. You can tell things are changing, and it's going to be interesting to see how all this unfolds. But the Bible and having a connection to God, a relationship to God, being service oriented is the way. And that's what I'm realizing. And I hope that you found this episode helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them below. I'd love to hear from you. If there's things that you'd like for me to cover on the show, I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. hit that like button, share with your friends and family. That's how we're going to grow the channel, especially if you found this content helpful. I really do appreciate your time, and may God bless you. And until next time.